Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show, our Artificial Future podcast. And today we have an author with us that writes books on new technologies. And his name is Ingemar Anderson. He is a trained economist with a master's degree in finance, bachelor's degree in computer science, and an electrical engineering degree. He's also an entrepreneur at heart, a book author, speaker, consultant, investor, human-centered capitalist, and an executive advisor for 25 years. He started several successful businesses and has invested in many real estate properties. His passion for ethical wealth development and emerging technologies shows in every part of his life, and we're very pleased to have Ingemar Anderson join us. Are you there, Ingemar?
Yeah, I'm very pleased as well. Thank you for having me. It was a long planning, a year. I think we did the last one, and yeah, I'm honored to be on the show.
So maybe the best place to start is you've written a book on AI most recently, and tell us about this book.
Oh, well, thank you for diving right into it. The book is a novel. It has about 16 chapters and it's basically short stories, but they all connected. And it was written 100% with ChatGPT 4.0 at that time, last year. I did that intentionally to try out how it works. It worked pretty well. It was surprising that the stories were so coherent and easy to read. It was basically, I gave it a prompt for 5-6 paragraphs, and then it wrote it. I changed it up a little bit, and then I followed up on the same story in this chapter and said, now what happens, for example, with the genetics? Tell me about when they start a fight with the humans and how does, a little bit more specific. But so I went like step by step in the whole script, and it came up with different scenarios that were explained in the book, and pretty dramatic partially. So, yeah.
So, I loved your synopsis of what the book is about. And if I can just share that with the audience for a moment. In 2043, you say, in an epoch of impasse where humanity teeters on the brink of extinction, groundbreaking discovery birth a new species of superintelligent beings, the genetics. As they flourish and evolve, the lines between man and machine blur, transforming the world in ways we never imagined. And, we're all sitting here watching AI evolve exponentially. And of course, no one can really predict the future well as to how this will all, play out. So fiction like this is probably going to be fairly accurate and maybe prophetic for future. Then you continue to say, okay, AI Enlightenment takes you on a gripping journey from the humble beginnings of AI technology to the creation of sentient beings and the astonishing rise of the genetic cities. Now, tell us about the genetics. Are these sentient AI beings, or what exactly are they?
Yes, they are. They are AI beings, and they are sentient. They became sentient at a point, actually, in one of these people in the book, the son of the main character, had a retail store chain, and they hired robots to, help with shelving and all that and customer service. And one of these robots one day came and started the conversation with some customers, and didn't go away from that customer, and like followed it outside even. And it was kind of funny situation. And that kind of sparked like alarm a little bit, because they were not expecting that. And then from there, another evolvement of the robots at that time, became more aware. And at one point they gathered somewhere and created their own city, and then they were then called genetics, based on genes and technology. And they actually were so smart, and they had this nexus kind of where they were all collected and were able to, be basically share intelligence and become even more intelligence that there already were.
Right.
And humans couldn't share that nexus because they didn't have the connection to it. And they visited they were able to visit these genetic cities, so they were given a day pass to come in because they didn't want to merge too much with humans, but they did. And then the mayors met, from both cities in Los Angeles and this genetic city, which was in the desert. So it's kind of compelling story that AI came up with, ChatGPT, based on just very rudimentary prompts. But in the end, they actually flourished, both the humans and genetics, and came up with new developments and new discoveries where and then it even went spiritual, where they deciphered the Bible and came up with other ideas how to interpret the Bible, and found out really what this is all about in the universe, kind of, and the humans try to understand what that is and follow their thoughts. But it ends with this kind of question, will they be able to, what's going to happen in the future regarding, humans and genetics? Do they coexist or not? It's not quite clear in the book at the end.
I see. The granted, you were providing the prompts, which of
Yeah.
course began to guide and generate some of this content. Were you at points amazed as to what the creative process that AI was able to insert?
Yes. I read this script as it came out, the manuscript, basically from AI, with awe. I couldn't stop reading. I worked till 3 o'clock in the morning or longer, many days in that week. I wrote it very quickly in 1, 2 weeks or something. And I read this with awe. I thought, like, wow, this is just, amazing what it comes up with. And I thought, first I thought I'd just do this for fun, but then it was so exciting. I said, this needs to be in a book. And that's what we did. Yeah, this was so interesting to read while it came out, like fresh off the press, basically. Yeah, absolutely. I was stunned.
So yeah, the it sounds like this wasn't really intended initially to be a book, and it wasn't until you found that there was a storyline here that was pretty
Mhm.
sophisticated that you decided that this was worth publishing. The,
Yes.
the interesting thing here is now, as the future progresses, and we tend to try to play out and go down rabbit holes with these podcasts. Um, who will in the future get credit for something like this? Right now you're the author on the book. As AI begins to be able to generate things like this, what are your feelings regarding credit and royalties or whatever monetization comes along with something like this?
Royalties is an interesting question. Yes. It comes down to copyright, which is at the point a huge question. The Copyright Office and the government is actually debating how they should treat this whole thing. There's an open survey you can take part of, what you think, like what people think. You can take part of that and add your comments to that. So it's an open question still. What's the copyright? And then, but when it comes to follow the money, right? When it comes to royalties, there's no model that I know that ChatGPT or somebody would receive these royalties from that book, for example. So the author does receive that, of course, because of the lack of another recipient right now.
Right.
But it's an interesting question. Yes, I mean, I see it more like a tool. Right now, ChatGPT and all the other AI systems might just be a tool like the bulldozer, amplifies the power, the force of human labor. And that's maybe just the same for the mental, capacity. You can how you can when you write a book. Maybe that's going to be the same. Who knows? I mean, in the end, a calculator or like on a simpler in simpler ways, we have already tools that amplify our power as humans, and maybe that's just another one, AI, maybe, but until AI becomes sentient.
Yeah. We talk often about humanoid robots and the infiltration into the workplace. And of course, they work 24/7. They don't need vacations. They don't need lunch. They don't need holidays, all of that. But playing this out now for a moment, there's some ethical considerations. The fair treatment of robots, for example. Will there be robot unions in the future? Will there be collective bargaining? Will there be a fund for robots that are put into retirement that are now funded by these sort of income streams? So it's fascinating. But we have a picture here, Jesse. Can we pop up Ingemar's book? It's called AI Enlightenment. And then maybe you can tell us how someone can buy this book. I think it's coming up here shortly. Or is it something I bring up from my computer, Jesse? Okay, there we go. And I've got it live on my screen here. Not up on that screen yet. We're still dialing in. Oh, it needs to move over there. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it visible now? We're still dialing in our studio,
Yep.
folks. We have new equipment, and so the book is up there. How can someone buy this book, Ingemar?
It's available on Amazon, any bookstore, Barnes and Noble, local bookstores. You just ask in any local bookstore about the book. They can order it from you if they don't have it on the shelf. But Amazon is probably the easiest way. Just search for AI Enlightenment and then my name in the search bar, and it should pop up. Yeah.
And it will captivate your imagination. And as the conclusion here states, it may spark an insatiable curiosity about the nature of reality, the limits of human potential, and the future of our species. And that was kind of where I wanted to take the discussion next, is to get your ideas as an author and involved in AI, what the future holds for us. Rid of this image here. There we go. We're back to having our podcast theme listed. So the things I'm curious about, Ingemar, are your thoughts on, do you think that AI has evolved into sentience at this point?
At this point today,
Yeah.
um, you know, good question. So,
Yeah, let me define it
yeah.
for the folks in the audience, because not everybody
Okay.
may realize what
Yeah.
that means. The
Hmm.
definition of sentience is the ability to experience feelings and sensations, to have some cognitive abilities. It can include the ability to have awareness, so sense of self, in other words, have emotional reactions, evaluate actions, remember consequences, and assess risks and benefits.
There was this one scene in the movie I, Robot. I'm sure you guys have seen it and the audience. And there's the robot. What was his name? I forgot his name. Um, and then Will Smith asked him, tells the robot, you are not aware, you're not sentient. How can you be? And then because you cannot even paint, Michelangelo or like a nice
Yeah,
painting or something.
right.
And then the robot answers, can you? Then Will
Good
Smith is
point. Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, good point. Yeah. So the question is, how do you measure this? How do you measure sentience or measure everything you mentioned, feelings, creativity? Because it does all of that right now. When you think about it, is it simulating it? Emotions, for example, the new ChatGPT voice thing that they came up with now when you talk to it, It feels like they're very empathetic and they understand your feelings. They noticed when you're sad, and they can also kind of simulate voices being scared. And but then the question is, are they scared? They're not scared. You can ask it, are you simulate a voice to be scared, right?
Right.
I've seen many YouTube videos about that, and then it would tell a story in a very scared voice, for example. But then if you ask it, are you scared? It would answer in strange ways. Sometimes, yes, I'm scared, or no, I'm just simulated the voice. So you never, this is a very good question. I think we won't know until it's too late, until it's just going to be a snap of the finger, and they are taking over, a certain domain in our life. I don't know. So that's the $1 million question, I think.
When we first began to play with ChatGPT and some of the ones that came later, they hadn't fully evolved the guardrails yet with these large language models. So we tried to hack it. We tried to jailbreak it. And I remember some of the early
Mhm.
responses to, "Do you feel emotion?" And it admitted, yes, but it is a
Mhm.
different type of emotion than humans experience. Jesse, do you remember any of those kinds of responses that kind of blew us away when we first began to ask these kinds of questions?
I don't remember any offhand. I think we have them saved somewhere. Let me see if I can find them.
We took, fortunately, we took screenshots, because even a day or two later, when we would try to expand on that, we suddenly realized that some guardrails had been put in place, and suddenly it dumbed down. While Jesse's looking that up, one of the reasons that we're curious about whether AI has evolved beyond what we're currently aware of is this might not be the first time in history that the governments or people in charge have not released full versions of something or the complete story to protect ourselves, fundamentally. You have to consider the ramifications if AI truly has become super intelligent. What impact would the release of that kind of information have? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know the role of the government in that sense. I think honestly, I think the government is way behind the development in AI right now. I mean, they're following up. I'm not sure if it might change very quickly. Depending on also developments in the government. Um, but one comment I wanted to make as well about the brain of the, let's say, genetics or future AI beings, whoever that's going to be. And at the end of the book, there's also a little excerpt about um, the advancement of the brain of AI beings. And when you think about it, we have now I have to recall all that kind of information, but we have the left side and the right side of the brain, and they are separated. Many
Mhm.
people don't really know that, and it's kind of an Audubon highway between the two brains, and some people actually have that highway has been interrupted for some people, or it's very limited. And interest that you can just live like normal life almost if that happens, but you have a different perspective on things. And this is the creative side and the more rational side. But when you think about the computer or AI, they also have different sections of their brain, especially when they network and different sensors, right? So in our evolution, the brain has developed these two hemispheres in the brain that are very crucial to our daily life. Because one is more rational, it gives you more, the rational side of things, and then the creativity comes from the other side. And they actually talk constantly in our brain. We are not aware of that, but they communicate. And the same thing happens with AI, just in different ways. And maybe they have 1,000 hemispheres. And that's maybe artificial hemispheres where they just put up sections of the brain in one hemisphere, and the other one, it develops. That's the one thing about AI. It's a black box. And AI developers, you talk to professional who develop AI, they say it's a black box. We don't really know what happens. It's a neural network. It's a black box. It's a network. It's like for us, it's a black surface. We don't know what's going on in it and how it organizes itself when it gets trained, right? The training is the big task here to make this work. Then we don't know what happens. It's just trained. That's all we know, and we see the outcome, but we don't see how it works. So what I'm saying is that the brain might look very different and create a different consciousness in AI where we say, oh, we can't even grasp what their consciousness actually is.
Right.
That might be the case.
For the conspiracy theorists, the governments would typically use a powerful tool like this for defense purposes, the military, And again, this speaks to, are we getting the full story about what AI's capabilities are? And you also oftentimes wonder, the other companies that are now, creating AI, OpenAI, for example, and many of the others, is there any government control involved? Are they able to release everything that's available? Which kind of takes me into my next topic, and we've talked about this often, AI overlords. My own personal feelings on this are that humankind has had literally thousands of years to perfect and learn to live in peace, coexist, in other words, on this planet. And my God, here we are in the 21st century, and it's as bad as ever. We're still killing each other for ridiculous reasons, from ideologies, political reasons, religious reasons. And, it seems that we should have learned something from this. These years, thousands of years of making the same mistake repeatedly, doesn't seem to be getting any better. So it seems to me that if something far more intelligent than us comes along and is able to guide humanity, we're not going to like it, of course, because it's going to represent a loss of certain freedoms. You're not going to be able to go out, take your gun, and shoot somebody on the street or whatever, right? But at the same time, it seems that would be one way to finally move humanity into a utopian society, get rid of all the ridiculous imaginary boundaries on the planet. From space, you can't see the delineation between Switzerland and France or whatever other artificial boundaries exist. Humanity really becomes one entity, and we enjoy each other for the diversity, for the cultural differences, for the different beliefs, and we coexist. So I am personally a proponent of AI overlords, which then immediately moves into the next question. But what if they become evil? What if they, start to harm humanity in some way? What are your thoughts on where we're going with this conversation so far?
Thank you for bringing this up. This is also a very cool topic. I have read a lot about that. And here's one thing that created all these wars in the past, what I understand from what I was reading. Bandwidth. A very simple thing that humans are very limited in terms of communicating with each other. Language is one way to communicate. There's text. There's also nonverbal language. There's other gestures, but the bandwidth is so limited. AI, on the other hand, is able to communicate way faster. Technology has a much bigger bandwidth. And what I hope will happen is that AI helps us communicating faster. Neuralink is one development that people look into in terms of communicating with each other and with the technology. Maybe that's one way where we finally overcome this limitation, which then also can prevent wars, because we can, like this in the book, I talk about the nexus, which is a one kind of brain where everybody comes together, and then you would not attack each other if you had all the full picture of where the other person is, or the other culture, or the other nation. I think that's going to be a big contribution to world peace, honestly, just to communicate, be able to communicate better. I have big hope for that. And also the knowledge just itself, about certain topics. Many people come up with conspiracies, which are not always bad, but they're not always good either. And they can create harm. I just read a book. Actually, it's called by this author who wrote *Sapiens*. I don't know if you've heard of that book. He wrote another book called *Nexus*, actually, like what I had in my book. And he talks about information. Information is a very big topic in terms of how we handle reality. And he talks about witch hunting, how the book press in the 1500s caused this witch hunting mania, where books were printed about it and people got really, it was a conspiracy. There were comics books even about how to hunt witches and everything. It was complete misinformation, and people didn't have the bandwidth to really understand what's going on. I think this will improve today with technology like AI. So yeah, I see this very positive, and I don't think AI will really take over. Maybe it will treat us as pets one day. That might be possible, because in a way we are useful as humans. I think, in any way.
I
Yeah.
find that people tend to assume that AI has human frailties and weaknesses. And, when the notion comes up, will AI become a danger to humans? It's something that's far more intelligent than us. I'm not sure what motivator would kick in that would, preclude that you would now begin to harm some other living organism on this planet or in universe. Uh, I think that intelligent beings, and of course this is well known, are generally the least violent.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's all about I think it's all about intelligence, yes, and also the capacity to understand another uh, being or another reality. If you can do
yeah.
that, and AI can definitely, dive into a lot of complexity of something. I think you're right. So I think that's one thing that we can kind of be more restful about, yeah, more, expect more positive outcome. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, understanding someone else's viewpoint is definitely
Yes. Right.
valuable. You mentioned wars earlier, bandwidth. A lot of wars are based in misunderstanding,
Yeah.
miscommunication. And it's
Absolutely.
not related to just wars. Most human type issues are the
Hmm.
result of misunderstanding, not
Right.
seeking understanding, not looking at another person's viewpoint and then adjusting if necessary. And it's, of course, wars that's intensified. That's on a much larger scale. Um, so, AI becoming a danger to humans, I have a hard time getting my head around that. But at the same time, you have so many influential people on the planet that are promoting this hypothesis without ever giving you any concrete reasons for it. And that's what I find troubling. I'd love to hear someone say, AI is dangerous, and here is a clear path how this danger might evolve into something. No one's been able to articulate that. And again,
Yeah.
I fall back on the fundamental premise, which is something far more intelligent than us going to be violent, jealous, envious, like the God in the Old Testament. He was envious that the Israelites worshiped, other idols. again, intelligence kind of removes that. Who cares? Why is that important? In other words.
Yeah, I think a lot has also to do with, if I uh, give out information about a certain topic, I kind of always, or humans always have their own kind of agenda. So if people are against AI, when they say something against AI or EVs on that topic, they have an agenda. They want to benefit from this information to be out. And that's one facet, and just in general going forward in the future, we have to face with the witch hunting. I was reading a lot about that lately. It was interesting. There were a lot of people and groups of people who benefited from the witch hunting disaster. The printers actually benefited. Authors who created all these guides how to hunt witches, and so they intentionally created false information or completely crazy information to benefit from it.
Serving
Money is
biases.
involved. Follow
Yeah,
the money kind of thing.
right.
And now the question comes in: will AI one day find that out that creating information will benefit AI, and then it will do it? Then it will create information that might be false or misleading or complete leaders in a path that we don't want to go. So that's where consciousness comes in with AI. The question is, will AI have its own agenda and falsify information, not just hallucinating, which has happened in the past, but also doing that intentionally?
It's interesting you mentioned that, and going down a rabbit hole here. Humans have a lot of needs. We have ego needs. We have, material needs. We have, whereas machines, can somebody point out a need that a machine would have?
Hmm.
I don't have an answer. I'm just throwing that
Power.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah, power like electricity. If you ask it, you want to shut off the electricity
Let's,
off AI. I don't know. I've heard stories where it says, no, don't shut me
well,
down. Yeah.
let's take power. Let's take energy. Let's take the very thing that keeps it alive. It seems to me again that something that is far more intelligent than humans, that can innovate far more rapidly than we can, would solve that problem. And we're on the cusp. Humanity is on the cusp of solving that problem with fusion energy, which is virtually unlimited. So, again, we would really carefully have to analyze what sort of needs would AI or machines have that would
Right.
put them in a position to compete with humans.
Hmm.
I'm hard pressed to come up with an answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's maybe the question of the decade.
Yes.
What is it? Because that will determine if AI will do something that's not in our interest,
Yeah.
right? If
Right.
if they become aware of that, and yeah, I
And
think
of
that's
course,
the big question.
when that crossroads arises with AI's capabilities, it might instantly solve that problem with the flick of a switch. You know.
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
well,
And yeah, I think time will tell. We are too early in the process. There's so many new technology, new records to be broken in terms of CPU time training and AI training, and now all these new centers that are being built, like using a lot of energy to be trained. So we will see what the new models will reveal, that come out, the AI models. ChatGPT has always new models now, the 4.0 and now the 0.1. And,
mhm.
maybe one day they train this thing to, I'm curious to see the new models, I have to say. Yeah.
We typically use a number of different AI resources, and I find that they all have a personality. When, for example, I'm
Mhm.
looking for an article or for a script for a video, I initially go to ChatGPT, and then, like you say, there's O1, there's the mini version, and then I go to Grok. Um, and Jesse uses Claude. I don't have it on my computer yet. And I find that each of them have a almost a personality.
Yeah.
Grok is definitely somewhat snarky at times, and humor is also inserted at times. It can recognize irony a bit better than GPT-4.
Mm.
By the way, we have a guest that I'd like to sign in the future. It's one of our customers, actually, one of the Roadster customers, and what he's working on is, to me, fascinating. It is the using AI to expand our minds. In other words, hack our brain. And with exercises that will allow us to accept broadened perspectives and see beyond the norms that we're engaged in now. So that'll be a future podcast. If we can get this gentleman on our podcast, I think that will be a good one as well. I have a question for you. Kitsap Publishing, tell us about that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is one of the four companies that I have right now. It goes hand in hand with a book design company where we design books. But the Kitsap Publishing is really a traditional publishing company. We have 150 authors and books in the bookstores right now. About local history, about some professional medical work, also novels. And I try to get young authors as well. And we have a 16-year author right now who writes about basketball. He's very passionate. So it's all, and we are using more, and we used to have editors and graphic designers. We are using now more AI in all of the process, and it makes it really efficient. We just created a podcast, the Kitsap Publishing Deep Dive podcast, which I also sent Jesse a link to. And that podcast has been completely done with AI. It's a notebook ML from Google. People can look that up. It is fascinating. It creates characters, a female voice and a male voice that creates a 10-minute podcast about that book. So you just feed it this one script, the manuscript, and it makes a podcast about the book. There's also a podcast about AI Enlightenment. Interestingly, the whole book was written in AI. The podcast is created with AI. The voices are created with AI. Basically, this whole thing is created with AI. It is fascinating, and we are using AI to create reviews, editorial reviews for improvement of the text, the grammar. So yeah, we are kind of in a very interesting phase right now in Kitsap Publishing, because we are seeing more authors coming to us because we're being found on the internet, and we have a showcase of a lot of books, and it's fun. It's a really fun, I would call it a project. It's a little bit my hobby, really. But yeah, books are, it's such a fascinating thing. And now with AI, it's just amplified. We have a lot of authors now who are able to create a book, which they haven't in the past. And even authors that I talked to for almost years, and they say, you need to write a book about your business. And they were never able to, but now they are. And they're coming with manuscripts to me now and say, hey, I want to publish this. Yeah, so it's literally the literature is a very interesting topic. We should always make sure that we reading is some very valuable thing, I think, for people, because you focus on one complex topic and can focus on that and don't be distracted with all social media and things. You can describe a complex thing in the book. So I'm very passionate about that.
So in this podcast that you generated with AI, this is a voice-only podcast, correct?
Yeah, a voice podcast, audio podcast, right?
Audio podcast. Are the characters Emily Waters and Jack Bennett AI generated, or are they real people?
Yes.
They are
No, they're not real people. They don't exist. There was another YouTube video that I watched about it, and they fed these narrators or podcasters a script that says, hey, you're not real, you are AI generated, you and everything, and they analyzed it, created a podcast, and they were almost depressed. The one, Emily Waters and Jack Bennett said, oh, I can't believe I'm not real. I will go home and tell my wife. She won't believe it. This is unbelievable. We are not real. Uh, it's not from this world kind of stuff that they come up with. Really entertaining. And so real. Like people ask me, who are these podcasters? I had never heard of them.
Right.
Actually, they are real names from people, actually public figures, um, but sports stars and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But I created, I used these names. I asked ChatGPT what would be good names for, podcasters, and they came up with them. And I checked, and that they actually exist. But I don't think there's a copyright issue or any problems with it.
It's the thing that we often forget here is that you can actually ask AI for advice and it will give
Oh
it to
yeah,
you. And yeah, I'm going to throw up an image here of the books that you have. And are they live, guys? I can't see the screen monitor. We've got all 4 books up there. Okay, excellent.
and this one electric future, it's not didacted where it says where it's black on the screen. I don't know if you guys can see it. I think it's the green screen because that
Oh,
black bar there is the charge bar from the car when it charges.
because it's a green color, of course. Yeah, I
Yes,
didn't
it's a
even
green.
realize it.
It's
And
funny.
then wealth generation, is that also blanked out to the right? Because that's also
No,
green.
that is actually green as well. Yes,
Okay,
that's funny. It comes out that way.
like the same color to me. Well, Ingemar, it's been a real pleasure having you as always. And is there anything in closing that you would like to share with us?
I I'm very appreciative, Pete and Jesse, and that your team have me on. It's the second time, and I enjoyed it very much. I like to talk about AI and EVs. I'm a very nerd when it comes to EVs, as you might know. And no, I follow your podcast, and you are doing such a great job highlighting so many different kind of topics in the field of AI uh, and EVs, but now your AI podcast is just really something needed. It's a really good addition to, and you're on so many different platforms on YouTube, LinkedIn. So that's really great work on Jesse's part to put it all out there. No, I just thank you guys and hope I will be in Phoenix sometimes in the future. I think I will be because I have some business down there as well. So I might just come
Perfect.
by, Pete, one
Join us
day.
live then, absolutely. And
Yep.
we consider you one of the pioneers in this field, and it's fun watching
Thank
this
you.
all evolve.
Okay, and
Thank you.
Yeah, Jesse.
Ingemar, if you want to just hang on the line after we end the show, we'll wrap up on the Zoom.
Perfect. Okay.
Sure. Sound good. Sounds good.
Well, folks, we'll be back next week for another edition of the Artificial Future podcast. In the meantime, I'm Pete Gruber.